What's up, Capoeira Nation? Welcome back to the Capoeira Experience podcast. Thank you so much for coming back and listening, be part of the Capoeira community. Without us, without people, there's no community. So it's good to have everybody together, coming back together now. This crazy stuff for the last 2 years is kind of like fading out slowly. So as you guys know, I'm big fan of people leading and people bringing back to a community, not only for the capoeira community, but also to a local community and making capoeira grow and making capoeira happen and offering a lot of value for especially your local community. That's where we should start. And then I'm a big fan of these new guests who are going to have on the podcast, because not just the capoeira, also the leadership, and I'm big fan of people that step up for leadership and making stuff happen. That's what I'm about. And then we more further introduce, please let me introduce you to Monitora Reba. How are you doing, Reba?
I'm good.
Nice. Thank you for being here on the podcast and sharing your experience and your knowledge, because you have a lot of knowledge.
Thank you for having me. It's humbling, but sometimes you don't think you have a lot of knowledge, but sometimes you realize you do as you start to have conversations. So I'm very excited to be on your podcast. I think it's a dope thing that you're doing. So I think, yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, is a lot of contribution that you bring back to the community. And like I said before, not only to the capoeira community, but also to your local community, because you guys are doing, I'm a big fan of you guys, how you guys are organizing, how you guys stay very, very organized. And I'm a very observant person. So last time I went to Sua Casa, I saw all of you guys like walking around doing stuff. And I was like, okay, this is how we can do stuff. And it's really cool to see you guys working together and to make stuff happen. It's really cool.
Yeah, people forget events are kind of like mini productions. So you also have to, make sure you have a good team with you, and communication is key.
Yes.
And not just the folks who are in the leaders, will say, but also it trickles down so that you're explaining to, like, say, your students who are there that day, your guests who are there, that they have clear idea of expectations.
Yes.
And a clear idea of what's going to happen. So they know this is the schedule, this may change, but, you let them know this is the point person. This might be the person you come to for this. There's pieces of it that along the way you learn how to make it work.
Yeah.
So this 100%. Production that we're putting on, not just to the public, but for those who, they paid to come to an event to have fun, to get workshops, but they're also paying for an experience that's positive. So you're making sure that you're doing all the things that you need to do to make sure that it's not anything that goes awry. Things happen, but you make sure that those things are controlled, and you make sure, you have people in place to say, hey, if there's something going on, we have this person, or hey, this is who you need to talk to. So it's all about teamwork, communication, and just making sure you're staying focused on the task at hand and what the end of the result you want to make happen for that event.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's part of the leadership, right? So of making sure everybody knows how everything goes. Like if like military, the leadership, they let everybody know below how things are going, the strategies, where you're going. If you don't communicate, and then everybody's all over the place, and then that's when things actually happen. And then you you expect for the worst instead of like actually expecting for the best.
Right. So that's why I said that communication is key, man. Like, it's very important that you're communicating before the event, during the event, especially. Like, maybe there's a channel that you guys all say, hey, we're going to be on WhatsApp. Okay, that everybody knows. Don't go to, if you get a text, it's maybe something serious. Or if I get a phone call, you start to know, like, the protocol is this is our WhatsApp chat, because I'm sure everybody has one in Capoeira. We all have a WhatsApp chat.
Oh yeah.
And you have to organize them, but at least you have that one. Say, okay, this is the dedicated one for the event. This is how we're going to communicate. Or maybe you're going to communicate via phone, but you kind of determine, like you said, the ways you're going to communicate are important too. Not just that you're communicating, but what are the channels we're communicating on? Or, do you have a runner, we'll call it. So it's a lot of pieces in there you got to have. Like, that runner may be that person who you say, hey, they need water. Hey, I need to make sure, can you go? Like, that may be that person that's doing everything, that's moving physically a lot.
Yeah.
But the leaders are kind of like still guiding them and saying, okay, I need you to be here. It's kind of like a chess game, right? Like, you're kind of making sure the pieces are there, and you got to overlook the board.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's so crazy. Is there many leader things for events that if you missed, and then it creates a little bit stress, and then it piles up, and then you start missing, and then it's just it gets chaotic if you don't know how to like handle those tiny little pieces, and if you don't have the team.
Yeah, it's all about that team.
100%, 100%. So before we keep going forward, what is your social media so people can follow you and see your work and everything there?
Yeah, so I have two handles. My personal handle, kind of my personal handle is at Reeves_3. So that's at RREBBS_3. And then my project is the Queen City Jenga Project, and that's QC_Jenga, GINGA_project.
That's
so
awesome.
Follow both of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Go there, check it out. It's a lot of really cool work that you're going to see there, and then definitely go check it out. And then now jumping into the stuff that I would love to kind of like pick your brain a little bit, and then
Yeah.
which is the thing that I'm very how do you call that? I just say the word fan, and like I really respect that how you are part of of the background of the handling the money and all this kind of stuff. Hey, Capoeira Nation, I'm very happy to announce our workshop with Fosmanda Coruja, or also known as a Fosmanda Joy, all the way from New York on May 14th here in Indianapolis, hosted by us here in the Capoeira Brazil, Indianapolis. And this is going to be 2 hours full of Capoeira. The first hour is going to be full class with Fosmanda Joy. And we are going to have right after that a full hour of Hada, or full hour of us moving, connecting, and playing as much as you want and as much as we can. The early bird is going to end 1 month before the workshop, okay? Make sure you register, click the link below, and come join us on May 14th, 2022 for this amazing workshop with Fosmanda Coruja. I was on the point of, yeah, I'm big fan of the people that keep everything organized. And while I was in Sua Casa last year, which you should go check it out, I saw how organized. I always saw you with a pen and a paper on your hand all the time, and I saw you like walking around, like checking everything. And then, so what would be your very short story of your capoeira first, on how you started capoeira and when year and everything? The normal question, how you started.
So I started when I was 17. My mom saw a flyer back in my hometown of Charleston, South Carolina, and she said, "I think you'd like this." And it was a flyer of his name is I think his name now is Formando Queixo out of Charleston. Cool. And she had saw this flyer, and it was him doing Martelo Duchamp from I think it was Martelo Duchamp. And she was like, "I think you'd like this." And the reason she thought I'd like it, because up until that point I had did karate and I had did dance, but I both was doing them in separate mediums, right? They were separate things. So she was like, well, and I think by that point in karate, I was pretty far along in my karate. So I was kind of like I was like in the high school too. So I was a senior in high school, I think, or a junior. Nice. So yeah, she was like, you should try it. And then I had been dancing at the public high school I went to called Charleston County School of the Arts. It was a public high school, which I'll share that forever shaped my thoughts about how art should be accessible, because I went to a free public art school.
Nice.
And so I took dance there from 6th grade to 12th grade. So I studied ballet, studied modern, and he studied all the modern techniques and all of the ballet, like formal training. And so by the time I saw this flyer, I was like, okay, like it has music, dance, and martial arts. Sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
Went to the first class. The first class was a little like, oh, I don't get it, because they weren't like, there's no contact when you first see capoeira. You just don't understand the choices that people make that are active choices not to kick. You're like, why are they just not? Okay. But I have liked it. I liked the fact that it included like movement and it was fluid. I like seeing the people do like bridges and stuff. I was like, oh, that's neat. So I just kept going for like a year. And then I ended up going to college. I went to Winthrop University. So I ended up moving to Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is about 30 minutes south of Charlotte. When I got up there, I knew I didn't want to do karate again, because the system that it was back home was not up there. And I was already a black belt, and I was like, I don't really want to start over. So I was like, I don't want to start all the way over and something. I was a 18-year-old kid. You don't want to start over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, totally.
So I found Capoeira, the group there. I found the guy was there. He was teaching, and so I started going, and I started liking it again. And so I was there doing Capoeira for a period of time, and then unfortunately the teacher he had to leave. He had to go back to Brazil.
Ah,
Um, yeah, a common
and
story,
you like,
unfortunately for many of
no,
us.
why?
Yeah, so for a period of time we didn't have a teacher. So but I kept training and things like that, and then we were able to get in contact with somebody, and they brought Mr. Esquilo here, and then unfortunately he had to like leave too, and then
Oh,
we had Colton Messer now Zumbi here as well. So he's been here and he's been teaching in the area. And so that's kind of how I've continued my capoeira, just training and those sorts of things.
that's so cool.
So I've,
Especially
I've
Mrs.
been doing it
Kilo.
now for like yeah, I've been doing it now for like 12 years. Doing capoeira. So like it's for me, it's been a very interesting dynamic. And I
Yeah.
tell people because I already have the martial arts background and the dance background, I kind of have like a cheat because I already had the two. They were just separate, and I
Yeah.
just had to put them together. Because in karate you spar, but you're typically sparring, so you're intending to hit people,
Oh,
right? And
okay.
it's a little bit different as far as like you're not trying to, let's say, have a dialogue, right? Like
Yeah,
we're
that
not trying to
connection.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not trying to connect in that way. We're trying to like connect, like I'm trying to hit you, connect.
I'm trying to break your face.
So yeah, it's a little bit different, And in that we do have pads, and this we don't, so kind of like the opposite.
Yeah.
And then with dancing, there's the improvisation stuff that I learned through my formal training, which I've been able to put into capoeira. And it's interesting as a dancer to see more capoeiristas interested in this
So cool.
idea about
Yeah.
improvisation and some of the
Yeah.
techniques you learn in like modern dance class. So that's
Yeah.
been an interesting thing to witness as well.
That's so cool. You think that that background of the music and then and the dance part that helped you to kind of like lead into the rhythm and the timing for capoeira?
It made it easier for me.
Nice.
I
Okay.
definitely think it made it easier for me to move with others. It made me easier to find connections with others
Nice.
on a
Okay.
movement sense. So my struggles in capoeira have been with the language
Okay.
and been with playing music, not necessarily hearing how music should be. Like my ear can kind of pick that up because in dance you're typically doing that.
Because music's
Learning,
about timing.
yeah, right. And then like
Yeah.
learning sequences was easier for me because in dance you get taught choreography like a sequence, and you have to
Okay.
already know how to do it on the left side. So in dance, you're already like if you go to dance a lot, you're in the room like okay, I got to think about how do I do my left side. So for me, that was
Okay.
easier by the
Nice.
time I got to capoeira because I already could look at it and say okay. You learn tricks like you learn like okay if they step forward you remember they step forward then you need to step forward the other way like you learn
Yeah.
those tricks in dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
In capoeira, that's not something we teaching, immediately. Like this is how you learn how to do the right side or the
Yeah.
left side, or picking up stuff fast is not a skill you're going to get in immediately when you get in capoeira. It takes time.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I kind of had that little head start because in dance, I've already been having to pick up a sequence like, okay, we got this many 8 counts across the floor. I got to know how many do that many
That's
quickly.
so cool. Yeah. 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 So cool.
So I tell people I had a little cheat, a little cheat sheet,
Yeah. Well, it's
a little
just like
cheat
something
sheet.
that helps you. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Nice. Nice. And then so you have about 12 to 13 years doing capoeira, and then
Mhm.
so then now from your background on where you went to school and college, and because you do the numbers, right? You did
Yeah.
accounting. Was it accounting?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
went to school. My parents made a deal. I didn't want to go to college actually, and so my parents
Same.
was like, yeah, I didn't want to go to college, but I knew I didn't want to stay in
Y
my
eso no es de
hometown. I thought
capoeira,
I was,
man. I was telling you my mom.
yeah, I wanted to be an artist. I just knew I wanted to be an artist. I didn't
Oh,
know what that
nice.
meant. I just wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
Um, so the deal was they would pay for me to go to school for dance, but I had to get another degree. And so I was like, okay, that's a fair deal. I applied to one school, got in there. That's why I went to Winthrop. And then
Nice.
the degree I first started with was biology. That didn't work too well. I took one class and I was like, this is hard. So then I started doing business, and then I ended up doing accounting. And so I do accounting I tell people I do accounting by day and capoeira by night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. So
But that's
that's
pretty
kind of
cool
what
though.
my do.
That's a really good
Mhm.
deal. You get you art, and then it's funny that how things kind of like work out, because you say like accounting, that's so boring, and then now accounting is helping you a lot for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
capoeira
Like
part.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think. Well, I was able to. I went back to school for a master's, and so I got a B Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts one in dance and one in business. And then when I went back to school, I was like, okay, I guess I have to get a master's now. I found that they had arts administration, so that really interests me in terms
Oh,
of how to be an
cool.
arts administrator. Yeah, so I was like, how can I blend together? Because I appreciated the nonprofit community once, or the industry once I understood what the word nonprofit meant. Because
Yeah.
most people have a misconception of the word nonprofit, but once I understand what it meant and how nonprofits can be beneficial and how they can be an industry that does not only help the community, but you can be successful in your nonprofit career. It changed my mindset about it. So then I was like, okay, well, I want to go back to school to be an arts administrator.
Yeah.
And I figured I liked the arts was something I've been passionate about. So how could I blend together this accounting knowledge that I have, which is not common in the arts world at all?
That's
And
really, really cool.
yeah, how can I blend that together with my passion for the arts? And so I went back and got a master's in arts administration.
That's so smart though, because now you're thinking on both perspective, and then
Hmm.
accounting part and the art part, and then just that's really cool. It's really cool that you also have that option there for to go to school and choose that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, my thing was once I saw that a lot of like my art friends, like, they had to have two jobs. So I was
Yeah.
thankful that I had a skill set that I didn't necessarily have to have that second job
Yeah.
with the accounting piece of it. But I understood why my friends had that second job. And then I also felt like, well, maybe I could use the skills that I have to help my friends or those in the arts and sector community, arts and culture community, make sure they understand, like, well, a nonprofit isn't the negative thing that people think about when they hear a nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's a positive thing. It can be something good.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Because so you mentioned something really important, and then I want to pick your brain on that part. When you say like non for profit is like people have that misconception. What do you mean by that misconception?
So people assume that because you're saying nonprofit, you're not going to make any money. Like if
Okay.
you are going to work as a like in the nonprofit sector, that you are, it means that you're not going to make money, which
Okay.
is which is a misconception. What nonprofit means is that it's not profiting to one person. So the concept is that the entity itself is
Yeah.
making the profit, not the individual. In a for-profit
Oh.
business, the individual can make a profit. In the
Okay.
nonprofit, it's like to say the nonprofit is the
Yeah.
community is making the profit. So it's not just one person, but it's the organization is
Okay.
making the profit.
Okay. Okay. So is the on the benefit of the whole instead of like the individual. Oh, cool. Okay.
Right, right, right. And so a lot of times I think people assume that, because you're saying nonprofit, you're not going to make money. But if you look at, for example, certain nonprofit industries, of course, they're going to make more money, like your social services, like
Yeah.
American Red Cross. They're making a lot of money because it's a different type of need.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? Like it's a need where people, it's a service that they're providing, like with the blood donations and those sorts of things. That it's a need that's on a health conscious thing. So health needs are going to be different. But
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
talking about the arts and culture sector, it's tricky. It doesn't mean you're not going to make money. It's just a little bit. It's harder. The path
Okay.
to being successful in that way as an individual may be harder. If that's your goal, then maybe you should be for profit. But
Okay.
if you're, yeah, so I often try to tell people nonprofit does not mean you're not going to make money.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
means you as an individual, Joe Schmo is not the owner who makes money. For
Okay.
profit Joe Schmo can make money.
Okay.
Nonprofit Joe Schmo cannot.
Okay. And then you can categorize those two in between, like LC and like S corporation, and then those kind of stuff, and then non for profit, right?
Right. Those
Okay.
types of business entities. So
Yeah.
from a tax perspective, like you might have an S corp, you might have an LLC, or you might have a C corp as a corporation and a nonprofit. And
Okay.
that's just depending on what you feel for yourself is how you want your business to look like on the business side of things.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
there's a part of all that we do that can be a business, and then there's a part that's still, and the nonprofit is in itself is still a business. It
Okay.
doesn't mean that it's not going to be a business. Similar to when you were talking about how we have Suakasa, it's like I said, it's a production, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to make sure that this thing is happening, and
Yeah.
sometimes you forget that it is a production that you're
That's a
watching
really
as
very smart
as
to
the
see.
other side. Yeah, as a person attending, you're watching what we've curated for you to experience and see.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love
So
that.
like when you
Okay.
said you see me walking around with my pen and my
Yeah.
paper, which is just for show. No, I'm just kidding. So, I have on there like, okay, these are the times, right? Like I'm like, we have each of us are looking at the times and make sure that schedule flows. And even though sometimes we know the schedule may be lax, but we have an idea. Like we might have arranged in our head, okay, Friday is from 6 to 9. We might have a detailed schedule that we may share with you guys coming, who are the attendees, or we may not share it. Or we may just tell you point blank, this schedule may change. It's TBD to be determined. You know?
Which usually happens along the capoeira events. Like you go a little bit over, or you earlier, or it's just like subject to change a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and you just have these. I think in capoeira we're very fluid we're flexible and understanding that happens. But it also goes back to the communication, right? Like if that's not communicated from the beginning that may happen, you might come there expecting like this. You know, your expectations are going to be different.
Yeah,
you know.
For example, I remember one time I went to Brazil, and then my expectation was like, okay, this event was from, just to say a time, 1 to 2, and then it's supposed to start at 1. And I was like, well, I was ready, uniform, everything, okay, just ready to rock and roll. And then the actual workshop started like 2:30. So I was just waiting for an hour and a half, or like, where's the workshop? And then as an attendee, you get frustrated, and then it's like a concert, right? Like you go to a concert, like you just said, you go to a concert, and then concert start really late. It's like, oh man, I just...
But if somebody had communicated, you might not have felt the same way, because you're like, oh, they came out and said, hey, maybe, because this happens, like maybe the special guest, that their flight got delayed, which is, you know, no one can like control that. So then your expectation is going to change. Versus if you get there and you're like, so it's not like, you know, so it's that communication piece.
100%.
There's a piece of it that, you know, as the leaders or the organizers of the event, we have to communicate a little bit to those of you who are paying for the event. Because I do understand that frustration. It goes not just with capoeira. It's like you said, a concert. I remember going to a concert and like everybody kept saying it was going to start late, like an hour late. There was no opener. I think it was a Jay-Z and a Kanye West concert, and they didn't have an opener. So I was like, okay, I got to be there at 8. And then it was like a whole hour where everybody's just like talking. No, they had no opening act, and they didn't announce that. People just had started communicating that on social media. Like, so you knew to get there at 9 instead of 8, but the ticket said doors open at 8. Tickets start, you know, the show's at 8. So it's the same thing. That communication piece. I mean, you were chill about it, but you're like, I wish I knew, because then I'm not rushing, you know, like you said, to put on clothes and be there. It's that communication piece, just sharing with people. You know, sometimes things change that are just simply beyond your control. But you can tell people, and hopefully people are reasonable and rational enough to say, okay, I understand that happens. A flight got delayed. Or, you know, there was a car accident, especially like say if you're in a major city, right? Like in Atlanta, LA, and traffic's like terrible. You know, when somebody says that, you're like, they're like, that's legitimate. Like, you know, like
people understand like more.
That's that traffic. Because they've communicated. You know, you said, hey, this is what's gonna happen. This is what happened that caused us to run over. Or maybe something happens, and then like maybe somebody has to eat at a certain time, you know, for whatever reason. So then they know, like, I have to go leave during this because I have to go eat. But they knew because we told them about the schedule change.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, exactly. That communication is such a key, so important. And then coming back to the subject before, so how do you apply that knowledge in your capoeira community, in there in Charlotte, where you teach in Charlotte, or you teach outside of Charlotte?
I teach in Charlotte.
Okay.
And applying, so what I have learned, for me, the concept of how businesses, how capoeira can work a little bit as a business, or just if somebody's wanting to do things from a business perspective. You know, having a nonprofit, in my opinion, depending on what your goals are.
100%,
makes sense. So if your goals are, you know, wanting to figure out ways to create more accessibility for your capoeira school, and or for the things you want to do in the community through getting public support, that's where a nonprofit is crucial.
100%.
And public support, I'm meaning like grants, I'm meaning like, you know, donations and those sorts of things. Whether it's a space donation, like getting space for somebody for free is a donation.
Totally.
Like, it could be counted as in-kind service. Same thing as if somebody says, here's food for your event. That could be a donation. That for some people, for some businesses, they like that and they feel more confident doing it to a nonprofit than to a person. It just depends on the relationships you build, which are key. And it depends on, like I said, what you want to do. Like having an LLC to me is also very valuable to somebody in capoeira. It depends on, like I said, what your goals are with capoeira. in terms of how you want to make it to become a business. It's
Yes.
a tricky slope too, you know, because you have
Yeah.
to think about not just how you make it as a business for what you want to do so that you can live off of it, right? But then
Yeah.
also how do you live off of it in a way that's full of integrity and authenticity. So you
Yes.
have to
100%. Oh yeah.
decide the best ways that work for you without making yourself and or the art itself feeling like it's exploited
Yeah.
or feeling like that it's being taken advantage of. And so that's
100%.
where
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope that you have to ask yourself on a daily basis. Are
Yeah.
you making conscious decisions that are making sure that you're staying authentic? Are you
Yes.
making decisions that are staying, you know, morally
Ethically
sound?
correct. Yeah.
Right. You got to make sure because there's pieces of it that this is something capoeira itself is something that's been given to us from those,
Yes.
you know, this thing that started as from a place of oppression, a place
Yeah.
of resist, from a place of resistance, to making sure that we're not diluting it, that we're not
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Forgetting
mocking
about
it.
that and just like keeping the pocket safe and just forgetting about the
Right,
struggles
right.
of the back behind.
There's a
Yeah.
balance to it. So that's
100%.
so you know there's a balance of doing those things from that side. But like I said, yeah, nonprofit can be beneficial to you if you have goals to make capoeira not for the community. It can benefit you in that way.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
Getting a nonprofit is not difficult. It's a little costly. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
Same thing with an LLC. It's not cheap as well. Um, but there are things that that can be beneficial if you're planning, if you have a desire to make capoeira not just the thing you go to, but like
Yeah.
more than a hobby,
Yeah.
and you want to have impact with it.
Yeah.
There's ways you can do it where the community can support you. And so for us with
Oh
Full
yeah.
Casa, that's how we've been able to support. We have, there's a nonprofit here that we're able to tap into, not just through that, but also through connections and getting grants and those sorts of things. And I don't know if I haven't talked to enough people who've been doing capoeira older than me to know, what their thoughts are
Yeah.
about it. This is just me with my knowledge
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
of
You're
what
pretty
I've
valid.
seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't know for others, if those routes made sense. Because sometimes
Yeah.
they don't make sense.
Yeah, 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 totally. And I was having that conversation with Cabezon on the last episode of being like, you can totally make a living of capoeira, and you can have a living, but not like exactly what you just said, not taking advantage of the art, and don't forgetting
Mm-hmm.
about like there's an art essence of this, and still making a living, and like you said, finding the balance of not forgetting about the art, the fundamentals behind the art, not the group, not the capoeira that you practice, but the art itself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very important for us to keep that and to preserve that. It's just like that energy and like beautiful, better energy that you get when you come to the hut instead of just having a empty space with no energy.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. It's very important when you're
Hmm.
making, to me, when you decide which one you want to do, or if you want to have both an LLC and a nonprofit,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understanding that it's okay to think about capoeira as a business, but
100%,
it's about
100%.
the output, I think, at the end of the day. So even though you may have that business, you got to ask yourself, what's the output am I putting into the community? Not just,
Yes.
like, so you got to think
Yeah.
about the output that you're putting not only into your local community, but the capoeira community in general, in
Yes.
terms of like, how is that contribution like valid? How is that contribution helpful?
Yes.
And these are personal questions. These aren't questions
100%.
you
Oh
should
yeah.
go. I don't think you need to go asking people about.
Yeah.
You might
Yeah.
ask some of your close friends about at times as your, just like your journey in life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
100%.
but some of these questions you have to ask yourself, like, is this authentic? Am I putting out something that, is valid or good?
Yeah.
Or is it just me doing it, with no regard to those who came before me? How am I
Yes.
helping others with the fact that I have the ability to get grant funding, right? Like,
100%.
that's something I think about. Like, how can I help others? Okay, I have this nonprofit. Like, how can I help others in a way that gives them, something to come up? Like, how can I do that? Maybe I have a nonprofit and you have a project, so maybe I could be the fiscal agent for your project.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So like this, like for example, if there's a friend of mine who maybe they want to do a capoeira like performance, right? It's not something I have a desire to do. Maybe they do, but they need funding. So
Yeah.
then we say, okay, well, I may assist in either doing maybe some paperwork or they may do all of it, but they could, we could talk about how can we partner in a way where I don't mind being your fiscal sponsor, which
Yeah.
means that they could use the tax ID of the nonprofit to get the grant funding.
Oh, okay. I see. Nice. Okay. Cool. Okay.
So it's kind of like if you think about it, if somebody has like a umbrella,
Yeah.
and I can say, here's one of you can come under my umbrella with your project, do your project, and then you like get back into the ring,
Okay.
or you stay
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
the under, or we stay under the umbrella together, But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
to kind of
100%.
like work and support others in the community who maybe they didn't have the resource to get the nonprofit, but they have the idea.
That's
So
awesome.
now we just
That's really cool.
collaborated
Yeah.
and worked together. They got grant funding. I was able to, give some visibility. This is another way of having positive exposure, in my opinion, because now I've given some exposure to the organization that is the
Yeah.
nonprofit, and they also got exposure, and
That's
they got
so
grant
cool.
funding.
That's very smart because also, and then you can use both entities to again to serve the community and to help the community.
Right, two
You
people came
think,
together. Yep.
yeah, yeah, you think it's a, and again it would depend on what are the goals of the person creating these two entities, but you think is it better to start with a LC or with a non-for-profit? If a instructor, let's say somebody instructor saying like, oh, I have 15 students and I want to start, an LC, or should I start non-for-profit?
I would say if they have 15 students or something like that, probably a LLC.
Will be more worth it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be more worth it. Now, if they were doing, like in my case, for example, I was primarily doing work in schools and doing work with
Oh,
communities.
okay.
So for me, I felt the nonprofit was a much more stronger route because I didn't have a lot of students.
Okay. Okay.
And most of my work has been either through after school programs or like local like schools and things like that. So for me, that made more sense than to me
It does
having
make a lot of
LLC.
sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally.
I think it depends on what your like maybe your current situation, is that if you have students, an LLC might work better for you to get the small business loan to do the things you need to do if you want to have a studio, or just even the small business loan can help you invest in like equipment and things like that in the current space that you may have,
Yeah.
versus a nonprofit might not be beneficial to you if you're not really working already in those populations or with those organizations that kind of are in the nonprofit industry.
Yeah.
So I think it really depends on where you're at and maybe what your next immediate to long term steps are going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And the whoever is listening to this, and then you have the idea in the head, you'll sit down and write down what helps, what goals, and see where you want to be in the next 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, like you write down your immediate goals, your long term goals.
Mhm.
For me, at the time when I made the decision to do the nonprofit, it was I didn't have a students of my own in that way that I had like a lot of students, and I was mostly doing, like I said, work in like after school programs. So to
Yeah.
me, it made sense to do a nonprofit because I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
well, I could get grant funding to continue to do the work in communities
Yeah.
than if I try to ask people for it on my own. I could go ask people; they could
Yeah.
maybe, but
Yeah.
it's more easier I found for myself to do a grant, to
Okay.
do work with the local arts council. Most communities, cities, or local municipalities, you have a local arts council either at the state level or at the city level.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Typically,
We
those
actually have one here
organizations,
pretty close.
yeah, typically those organizations usually have some sort of grant program
Okay.
that they're going to give nonprofits grants or creative individuals. Sometimes they do give it to individuals as well. So
Okay.
even if you
Okay.
have the LLC, you can still maybe get the funding as an individual. Um,
But not
it
as
just
big
might
as a
mean
non-for-profit, right?
it depends. It depends on
That's true.
what
That's true.
it depends on what it is. Like sometimes it's a bit easier, I think, for a nonprofit to say that to get the grant because they know
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
not going to stay in one person's pocket.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a little because a nonprofit has a little bit more transparency. It has to do in terms of reporting on taxes and that sort of thing.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Totally.
a little bit more easy to get information, whereas the LLC or the individual, they can still apply for the same grant. It just might mean that there's a little bit more nuances that they might have to their grant application, but they
Yeah.
can still apply for the same grant
Yeah.
with the
That's awesome. Okay.
organization.
Okay.
So both can work.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Okay. I'll check that out too and see how that can help here in Indianapolis to see, because
Yeah.
that might help also for events, couple events, and like also for putting programs for the kids, for especially for the kids class I have, and try to help the community with that.
Yeah, I think if there's programs where, from a grant perspective, if you're thinking about, it depends on how the program is going to be, right? Like if it's going to be a program where there still may be a cost to it, but it's
Yeah.
a low cost. So from a nonprofit perspective, you might have a program where if the typical cost, like say for your classes monthly, is like $100.
Yeah.
But if you do through your nonprofit program, it might be half that to a third of that, because
Okay.
you're trying to get a specific, those folks who it might be difficult for them to get access. They don't have the access of funds, because typically those of from Capoeira, from one perspective, you got to think about it. If you have accessible funds, I can't think of the name. It's like when you have additional funds in your household that can be used towards things other than your bills or your living expenses.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So sometimes when you have those funds,
Like
especially folks
entertainment, something like that.
yeah, like I can't think of an exact name right
Yeah.
now. But when you have funds that you can say, hey, I can put this towards something fun. Capoeira is that fun thing.
Okay.
For some people, they may not have those funds as easy, right? Like, minimum wage and those sorts of things are like pretty difficult right now, especially like with gas, right?
Oh my gosh.
Going up
Yes.
like crazy. So then those accessible funds, right? Those
Yeah.
excess funds, that's what I should say, excess funds.
Yeah.
They're not as easy. So then if you do your nonprofit and you say, hey, local arts council, I want to offer after school program for kids. It's going to be maybe $50 instead of the $100 that I usually charge, because I want certain parents who can come in there. They may have a certain income, or maybe they have certain other things in there that you're trying to make sure that those kids of certain populations have access to Capoeira,
Yeah.
right? So you can have that program. That's what a grant can help do. Like, it funds that program. The grant doesn't mean you're going to get the money and you pocket it. No, that you might get those monies and say, I want to buy the kids shirts. It might buy the kids meals for that program that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
It could cover, though, the cost of the instructor
Yeah.
to be there,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that at the end of it there's going to be excess funds left
Yeah.
over.
Like 100% of the fund is going to be for the person.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
would break those out, but say, for example, your teaching fee might be built into that, along with other items needed for that specific program.
Okay.
It
Okay.
wouldn't be long term. So if the program was an after school program, let's say it was 8 weeks, you said, okay, over 8 weeks, this is X amount of dollars. My rate is built into the budget, as
Yeah.
well as maybe the cost for utilities, the cost for supplies for the program. Could be meals. Some grants don't cover meals, but you might be able to get a local business to say, I'll bring you pizza,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or you might need markers for the kids, shirts, like those things, all in the budget just for that 8 week program.
Okay.
And then after that 8 weeks, in theory, all of the money should be spent.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
You shouldn't have excess funds left over. So
Okay.
your program is, it's almost like each time you're doing these programs, they're breaking even.
Yeah.
Or if you have excess funds, you can show how you use those monies to put back into the future program. So maybe you have excess funds, but you're like, but you still ask the organization who gave the grant to say, my teacher who was supposed to cover got sick, so then I paid a teacher at a lower rate to come. Could we use these funds for the next 8 week program we have starting in 2 weeks?
We have this piece left over that we can use for that.
Yeah, because you can ask that question. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right?
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to reallocate it. But at least they know that you're not saying, well, we didn't finish it, so we're going to keep the rest for our building, which that's not what they want you to do. They want you to kind of keep showing how you're putting those monies back into the organization. I tell people, nonprofit, if you think about it, it's like the recycling symbol.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that keeps going back.
Okay. Okay.
And we talk about that a lot of times in Capoeira, is that how we're always giving back anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the same idea as nonprofit a little bit. Is like you're always thinking about, okay, how do I put it back? It's not about how do I put it back and it goes out the circle in my pocket, right? It's like how do I keep it back where it's still going into the organization.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. It's a good way to see it too. The cycle of like coming in and going back out and coming back in. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's why I said it doesn't mean that like the teacher doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
It's just meaning after 8 weeks the teacher might not get paid.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's where like the LLC might get in there. Maybe that's where, like you brought up earlier, someone having 15 students. Well, then that's when their income might go back to just their 15 students. But for 8 weeks they had 15 students and nonprofit.
Okay.
Income. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, that's a really nice way to see it. And there's a specific way to write grants, right? It's not just like you go send a letter. Hi, I have this much spent and this much. I'm gonna spend this much. It's a specific approach to those kind of stuff too, right?
Different grants require different things.
Oh.
So sometimes you might have like a letter of inquiry, which is basically like, you have to tell the grantor what you want to do. So you have to kind of tell
Oh,
them like who you are, what your idea is, and why what you're doing will have impact. Like what is the value of what you're doing,
I see.
right?
Okay.
Like I could say that I want to, if I'm an artist, sometimes like an art grant might be, I want to take a bunch of cans, like Coke cans, to talk about how recycling is so important.
Okay.
The impact I want to have is so that people understand that recycling is a big deal, and if we don't do it, this is what can happen to the environment. Like there might be a
I
follow
see.
up to that.
Yeah.
That's like an artistic example.
Yeah. 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 It
And
works
in
the
that
same for
letter,
capoeira. Yeah.
yeah, in that letter, I'd write that. So maybe I have an after school program, like this 8 week program, and I want to say I have an 8 week program for kids, and out of that, my outcomes that I expect the kids to improve flexibility, to improve cardio strength, to improve balance, kids to gain self respect, self confidence. Maybe it's an area, maybe it's some kids who are coming in there where they already have behavioral things. You might say, I'm hoping that behavior issues go down 25% in their home. And that
Okay.
might be based on the survey you do with their parents before and after the program.
Oh,
Like parents, like
cool. Okay.
why are you bringing like a survey saying parents, why are you having your kids come here?
Yeah.
And they may say, behavior, maybe they have they're hyperactive and they want to get something to like put their activity somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there's a post survey that's done, maybe it's at the end of the 16 weeks, however long the program is. And you say, did the outcomes that you wanted as the person giving the program, the
Yeah.
facilitator, were they achieved?
That's
But you
so
talk
cool.
about
Okay.
that in your letter. You say in your letter, this is what I want to accomplish. And then you describe how you plan to do it through capoeira, but you give specific examples, a capoeira class, this, and this we're going to do. And it doesn't have to be detailed, like
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
nitty gritty. It
Yeah.
just needs to be broad enough. If somebody read the letter, they can say, oh, okay, I know what they're going to do. It's like after school program, they have martial arts, there's acrobatics. The kids are going to learn about some culture. They're going to learn about African culture, Brazilian culture, like things that are going to be like, okay, I can get what's this going to be like
Yeah. Yeah.
for the child to be in there. So each grant is different. Some require that type of letter, then you get the grant application.
Oh,
And
okay.
others, it's a straight grant application. Some of the grant applications can be very simple.
Okay.
Like sometimes if it's a small grant, like say a micro grant, and it's something under 1,000, they may just say who you are, first name, last name, contact information, brief description of what you want to do. Are you an LLC? What nonprofit, S corp, whatever.
Okay.
And then they may ask like, what's your budget? What's your expense, like expenses, income, and that may be the application. Very quick, simple, boom.
Okay.
Some grants may be more extensive. They want to ask more questions. Who are you bringing? How do you plan to do this? What are your desired outcomes?
Yeah. Okay.
How are you going to track the outcomes? Some are much more intense, and
Yeah.
some are just questions.
Yeah.
Um, it is a lot of like descriptions that you're doing in grants, so it's taking the ideas you have here and putting them down on the paper.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Um, and that's why again we come back to that word having a team can be helpful because
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't mean the person like might have a student or a friend. They don't have to be a great grant writer, but at least there's somebody that you can take to and say maybe they write well. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a good writer, but I have some friends who are better writers,
And can
right? So I
explain
might
everything on words. Yeah.
yeah, so I might tell them at a very broad level, this is everything. It's gonna sound like if it was a room that was full of like papers and everything everywhere, and then my friend might come in and they organize that room for me.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they
I
can
see.
organize it for me, but they took all the ideas I had and they said, okay, let's make this look prettier here. We'll make this part here. Okay, this corner is gonna look better here. Like that's where that team also can help you. So you don't have to, if you're the person doing it, you doesn't have to be just you. But
Yeah.
if you find somebody that has a skill set to do it well, they can at least you can tell like maybe somebody they speak well. Well, speaking well is not a good example, but if they write well,
Yeah.
that might be a better thing.
Speak.
Because I mean, I don't want to say that either because just because, yeah, I'd have to say if you maybe you can tell like, okay, somebody's able to very put together a story because that's what
Oh,
it is.
yeah.
A grant application is a story, and you're
Yeah.
trying to tell your story and be descriptive without being too restrictive with your description because you also
Yeah.
don't want to write yourself in a box, but you want to make it so that somebody can read it and say, if I close my
Oh, I
eyes and I heard
understand.
what they
Yeah.
said, I know what they're saying. Okay, they want to have an 8 week program with kids. They want to do acrobatics. Okay, I can see kids flipping. Okay, they want to do martial arts. I think martial arts kicking. Maybe they might think punching, whatever. It doesn't matter. They know martial arts is like, something of self defense. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, the kids are going to be doing music. Okay, I see instruments. Doesn't matter what they think the instruments look like. They know
Yeah.
music means instruments, singing, right? And then dance. They say, okay, they're going to be moving some kind of way to rhythms. Like, you want them to be able to think in their mind. They can imagine what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they read it, you're like, boom, I know exactly what that makes. I know what it kind of looks like. And the idea you want them to get out of it, that looks fun, engaging, and impactful.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
what you want them to get out of it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because I mean, you want the person on the other side that have no idea what capoeira is and have no idea how capoeira can help not just the person but also the community as a whole. And then you gotta be explicit and make them understand because that's their money. They want to know how he's gonna be back to the community.
Right, right. They
Yeah.
don't want something where somebody's like, I'm gonna do a capoeira class. Okay.
Okay.
Like
And
most people, yeah, like most of the time, if you do, like you said, capoeira from a teaching perspective, even if you're a student, when you go in spaces and you say, okay, guys, we're gonna do a capoeira class, everybody's like, crickets. No one knows what that is.
yes. Yes. Yeah.
You got to
100%.
explain it. So if you already got to explain it in a demonstration, to think you're gonna write a short paragraph of 3 sentences and someone's gonna get it, you gotta, you
Yeah.
gotta think beyond that. You gotta think,
Yeah.
how can I be descriptive? And think about, those times when you had the new student in the room and they didn't know what you were talking about, or like when you're teaching and you're trying to give people a sequence and they don't know what the other side looks like. But you already know, oh, the other person's gonna do this, but they don't know what
Yes.
person B is gonna do. And their head,
Yes.
they're like, so I'm gonna do this, and why?
And then
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so you gotta explain that. So you gotta think the same way when you're writing a grant application, whether
That's
that's
a
a
really
letter of
cool way.
inquiry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta think. We gotta imagine, and we already do it already in Capoeira, right? We're often thinking about what is the other person doing.
Yeah.
So now it just requires another set of like, how can I explain in words what my class may look like or my program may look like at a
100%.
very high, and how can I do it to somebody if they close their eyes and I read these words, could they
They can
say,
see the
I
movie
got
there.
it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
you have to think about it.
And this next question before we finish, what and again this is not like legal advices or anything like that, but how people can can you say it's in a specific way how people can report these grants through like taxes, because every year we got to report taxes. It doesn't matter if it's LLC and non-for-profit, right?
Mm-hmm. So if you get a grant, typically the granting organization is going to send you a 1099
Oh, okay.
as an LLC. But you'll actually get the 1099 if you're a nonprofit. And so you're going to report it as income.
Oh, okay.
Because typically when you get a grant, it's non-taxable income
Okay.
From the organization giving, and you're going to get a 1099. Now I think you're going to get the 1099 NEC, or you might get the 1099 MIC, miscellaneous. You
Okay.
either get one or the other depending on how the organization brought you on. If they brought you on as a contractor, then you're going to get a 1099 NEC.
And they are the one that sent you that.
The organization will send you that.
Okay.
If you get something over $600 or more, they're going to
Okay.
send you a 1099.
Okay.
And so that's when you'll report it as income on your taxes as the individual or the organization. Depending on, like, if you have an LLC, you might have a certain type of LLC classification where you report as an organization or an individual.
Okay.
Or as a nonprofit, you're still going to show that income, but the nonprofit, again, doesn't have to pay taxes on that income because it's a nonprofit receiving a grant.
Okay. And as an entity, you gotta save is the specific percentage and whatever percentage it is, right?
What do you mean percentage?
Because as a 1099, you are the one responsible for the taxes, right?
Correct.
You have to save them, like, I don't know, let's just say a percentage, right? Like 30-40%. And then you pay those taxes with those 30 or 40% or whatever percentage it is, right?
Yeah, so if you're a nonprofit as an individual, you're going to basically put that 1099 that's going to have your income report on. That's going to be included in terms of your overall gross income for the year. So say even if you have a salary job and then you get a 1099, you're going to put your salary job and that income together, and that's your total gross income for the year.
Okay.
And so typically your salary job is already taking your taxes out, but for that 1099, you didn't pay taxes on it.
Okay.
So then it's going to say, based on your total income, what is your tax that you still owe, or maybe you overpaid taxes.
Makes sense. Okay, cool. You
And then
say,
that's when you mentioned having an LLC comes into play, because depending on your LLC, you might have expenses for your LLC that offsets the income you received.
oh, okay, because you can write that off. Okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
maybe like you had certain expenses as a business, as an LLC, like travel. There might be certain travel expenses you did out of pocket that
yeah,
you can say, I might have received $300, but I spent in gas, or maybe gas just not going to an event, maybe gas going to and from your studio to teach, because
yeah,
that's, you're teaching. That might, maybe you spent, let's say now with gas prices right now, right? Maybe you spent like $800 in
yeah,
gas, but
yeah.
you had $300 in income. That's it's a loss of $500.
Okay,
So
okay,
you can offset those things, when you have an LLC, as well as a sole proprietor, you can still offset that too. So any expenses, even if you don't have an official LLC,
yeah,
you still count as a sole proprietor. So you could
okay,
still offset those things.
yeah, yeah,
I think the IRS typically does like 50% on gas and meals if you don't know the dollar amount.
yeah,
So you still
yeah.
can get some tax
Nice,
credit for that.
nice. And if you're listening to this, and just make sure you ask somebody capable with
Yes.
the whatever you are doing, and whatever is working for you, or whatever you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Definitely ask
they'll give you more
a tax
details.
professional.
Tax
Yeah,
professional, yeah, yeah, tax
a
professional.
tax professional. Yeah, definitely ask a tax professional. There's a lot of information out there you can find on
Oh
your
yeah,
own on the internet, but of course, ask a tax professional those questions if you're deciding to do an LLC or just keeping yourself as a sole proprietor. And they'll be able to tell you like how to track information if you really want to get nitty gritty, or if you don't want to track information of that piece of it because it can be tricky. They can also give you advice if you need to open up a new bank account, because that's a question sometimes people ask me, do I need a whole new bank account? I say that depends, because sometimes
yeah,
banks have a lot of fees built into them when it sounds like it's going to be
oh yeah,
easy.
oh yeah,
And then a business account sometimes has requirements that a personal account does not have.
yeah, yeah.
So sometimes that can be tricky. Like a business account sometimes might require deposits of up to $25,000
Oh
out
yeah,
of a
that's right.
month, and
Yeah.
you're like, I don't have
Ah,
that much coming in,
yeah, yeah,
or
especially at the
500
beginning.
transactions. Yeah, right. Or 500 transactions. Like that does not make sense. You might have 500 transactions for an event
Yeah,
once a
once a
year,
year. Yeah.
but so those are things a tax professional or a CPA or an accountant can help you understand if those are a need, or if it's just simple, hey, keep your regular bank account and we can figure out another way. So there's ways that sometimes that information I know can seem a lot when you're
100%.
first starting out, but sometimes in the beginning it's better to be simple. And then the
Yeah.
more you grow, then you figure out, okay, how complex is this getting for me? Because some people might, they don't need that level of detail in their financial situation with their capital business. Some people do. It
Yeah.
just depends on where you're growing and how big you are and those things. Like, does it make sense, right?
Yeah.
Does it make
Yeah.
sense to have all of these things? Like you asked me earlier, which makes sense, a nonprofit LLC? Depends on where you are in that time of your capital journey as far as the teaching and just, you may need it. And other times it makes no sense to have neither. It
Yeah.
might just be, just keep going on your way. It just depends.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. And then before we finish, and I want to talk about a little bit like Sua Casa, which is the event coming up in June, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
So
And
this year here in
super
Charlotte, we
cool.
have the Sua Casa event. It's going to be June 6th, 17th, 18th, and 19th
Oh,
in
so cool.
Charlotte.
Yes. Yes.
So it's really fun. We have workshops happening throughout the weekend, capoeira workshops, samba workshops, after party, as well as we're going to have community events, meaning if you know someone in the Charlotte area, they can try out their first capoeira class for free. Beginner capoeira classes that'll be happening throughout the weekend for free, beginner samba classes as well. We have some cool guests coming. We
Oh
have
yes.
Mestre Fran who will be here. We have Mestre Yvonne from Brazil
Oh
who's coming.
yes.
We have Contra Mestre Bozoro who's coming from Tucson,
Nice.
Arizona. We have a samba master coming as well. So we're
Oh nice.
finalizing things with him. Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of people here. And again, our emphasis with this event for myself, Juan Arjan, is the word access. We believe in trying to make sure that people can access things. So we try to make sure that, especially for those in the community who've not seen capoeira before, that it's accessible. So the workshops will be happening outside this year. We got a different location. It's a pretty cool location.
Oh,
Um,
cool. It's
it's a
not
pretty
going to
cool
be at the
location.
was it an old library? Oh,
So last year it was at we had this area called Victoria Yards. that was like an open space in the downtown of Charlotte.
Yeah.
That space unfortunately is getting turned into condos.
Ah.
So we're going to be in another space in another with another museum that's partnered with us here.
Cool.
So we'll be downtown in Charlotte again, but we'll be in a different part of the area.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty cool where we are. Which just made me think of another organization to ask after I said where we're going to be at. So I'm going to see if I can ask this organization, see if they spark some ideas. But we're super excited. We have again like partnerships that we've worked well with the local organizations, the local arts council here supporting us, as well as we have two other local performing arts organizations that are supporting us. So, as we talked earlier, partnerships are super important.
Yeah.
And we are excited about the event. It will be the second one, but we're really excited. We making sure that this event not only highlights capoeira, but also those who are people of color who are doing capoeira, and highlight the fact that the contributions that this art, like I said earlier, has given to us. And making sure that people say, hey, like this is an African art, it's a Brazilian art as well. The two came together, and they both have had contributions to this art form, and we're trying to make sure those get acknowledged in a way that's balanced, but also making sure that people can see that this is an event that's about community and about accessibility. So Sua Casa is June 17th, 18th, and 19th in Charlotte. More information is coming soon. We're super excited for it.
I'm super, super excited because last year I got the fortune to go last year, and it was super, super, super fun. If you get the opportunity to go there, definitely go check it out. And I promise you, it's going to be very, very worth it. It's so much fun. And it's funny because I was talking to Tempestad, and I was telling her like, hey, I've been to a lot of capoeira events, and I'm being super, super tired. But at the Sua Casa, because it's not only capoeira, it's like the drumming, the samba, and also you don't get that like energy exhaust. It's just like you want more, and you're not like, oh man, at the last day you just like super tired and you just want to go home. It's like the last day at Sua Casa last year, I was like, man, I want more.
Yeah, we try to think about the three of us. We're young in our capoeira journey, so we try to think about what it's been like going to a capoeira event.
Yeah.
We try to use that as well as asking others who attend the events, like, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
Yeah.
Because we want to know, like, did you enjoy it? Like, for some people, some events, a lot of workshops can seem like a lot of information.
Oh yeah.
And then also like physically, right? Like I was saying earlier, like our outcome, one of them is not for you to be physically tired by the end. That's exactly, not one of our desired outcomes. We know that can happen. Yeah. Right? Everybody's physical fitness is different, but it's not our desired outcome. We're not like, okay, I want them to be completely like done. That's not one of our thoughts. Our thoughts is we want them to be coming back like you are and saying, man, I had a great time. This is a good event. You got to go check it out. Like that's one of our number one things, making sure people are full of positive energy. And then people leave with some knowledge, something different that they didn't know, as well as showing like how much from a cultural perspective that they're seeing things, not just with African culture, Brazilian culture, but a little bit of like as Americans, as we're doing it, for most of us are American doing it. What do we take from it?
Yes.
So for us, our takeaway is not so that you're like dead and be like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this last workshop. No, we want you to feel like, like you said, like, hey, I want to do more. So we try to make sure we have good workshops. This year, our format's going to be a little bit different, but the goal of it is still that people, one, aren't tired. But I think with the format we've got, there's opportunities for people to feel that there's more knowledge that there's going to be takeaway from it. So they're going to be a few workshops a little bit longer, but they're designed in a way that's intentional. Okay. It's not designed in a way so that you're going to be passed out.
Which is usually the case. So
it's designed in a way that's intentional. And lastly, we are making sure there's opportunities for people to play capoeira. Because that's the point. You go to a new event is you want to play like with different people. Because you're like, okay, I played with like so-and-so in the class like 8 times this week. I need somebody else to play with.
Oh, yeah.
So that's also the goal we had in there, so that people feel that they had opportunities to play multiple people in the different classes, as well as, of course, everybody loves to go to like the big hall at the end. So I think this year the way we've structured it is going to be different, but I think it's a good difference. We're trying to make sure like it's
so fun. Can't wait. And I've been telling all my students, I think I'm expecting to bring about like 10 people. including me.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Come,
yeah. And like
man.
when we met in Michigan, I was telling everybody there, like, dude, you gotta go check it out. Let's go to North Carolina. And I have probably like 3-4 people, like I think outside of here in Indianapolis that are gonna join us there.
Yeah, I know. I was telling everybody too. I was like, you guys, it's really fun, and
oh yeah,
like I said, we make sure you're not tired, but we're trying to make sure there's positive energy throughout. So
100%.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah. I'm very, very excited. So yeah, thank you so much, Reba. It was so nice to have you here. It was super nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sharing your experience and your knowledge, and there's still so much that we can talk about.
Yeah, man. No, this is dope. Like I said, your podcast is super dope. I think in the age of technology, most of us now who are younger doing capoeira, things like this interest us. So I think, it speaks to also getting the older generation and the younger generation. It's a good way to combine the two because it's using technology through like Zoom and platforms like this, as well as a podcast is something people are comfortable listening to, like driving. And you can, you want to know, especially as you journey through capoeira, you want to know what people are thinking. You want to know some more about insights of who they are and who they're not. So these platforms, you can like see that or hear that and get some sort of idea of like, who is this person that I only see on Instagram or YouTube or maybe 100%. At an event and I just waved at. So these are good platforms, man. So this is dope.
Thank you. Yeah, because like the way I started this podcast, like I have so many questions that I have no idea. They know one person is not gonna give me all the answers, and then it's just like, how can I answer all these? I just have so many questions. And I was like, oh, wait, a podcast. I can reach out to a lot of people and they just like record it. And somebody's going to have the exact same question I have. You just, or they're afraid to ask, or they don't know who to ask, or they just forget or whatever. And then I don't want to do it. And then they lose the motivation. And I want more people to teach capoeira. I want more capoeira around us. And it's just cool. It's just cool to have capoeira around us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for coming here. And then we'll definitely see you very, very soon.
Awesome. I can't wait to see you in June.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being part of this episode one more time. And thank you so much for being part of the Capoeira community. I'm very happy you made it all the way to the end. Now, make sure you listen to the next episode next week or the following week or the previous episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, and don't forget to reach out so we can have you on the podcast. Okay, thank you so much for being part of this amazing journey in the capoeira community, and I really, really hope to see you one time here in Indianapolis, or I'll see you in the Hada next time. Okay, keep training, keep your capoeira school, keep supporting your capoeira school, and keep training, keep loving capoeira, keep training, keep playing the Hada. I'll see you in the Hada next time. Peace.